Hello, my name is Ben Ochoa. This is an analysis of the 2011 film Bridesmaids, created for Interpersonal Communication. My partner in this project is Bree Shakur. Here is a brief synopsis of the film's plot. Annie is a single, mid-30s woman living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Her best friend, Lillian, has been in her life since a very young age. Lillian gets engaged and asks Annie to be her maid of honor. It is also shown that Annie used to own a bakery that was shut down during the recession. She now works at a jewelry store. At Lillian's engagement party, Annie meets Lillian's friend, Helen, who Annie immediately dislikes due to Helen seemingly having everything together. Both Annie and Helen are obviously trying to be Lillian's best friend simultaneously. After the engagement party, Annie is pulled over by a Milwaukee state trooper on her way home. During their conversation, the trooper, Nathan Rhodes, makes the connection that Annie used to run the bakery Cake Baby, where Rhodes sometimes patronized. After an unsuccessful bachelorette party organized by Annie goes sour, Lillian has Helen take over these types of duties. This only further deepens the animosity between Helen and Annie. Annie and Rhodes explore their relationship further as Lillian's wedding day approaches. At Lillian's bridal shower, Annie's pent-up frustrations about Lillian and Helen's relationship comes out in an explosive emotional display. After Annie's tantrum, Lillian disinvites her from the bridal party, the wedding, and ultimately ends their friendship right then and there. Things have also now gone sour with Annie's relationship with Rhodes. In addition to this, she also loses her job, moves in with her mother, all seems lost. In the end, on Lillian's wedding day, Helen arrives at Annie's door urgently needing help. She cannot find Lillian, with only hours to go before the ceremony. Annie knows to look for Lillian at Lillian's old apartment. The two reconnect, apologize to each other, and reconcile their differences that have occurred throughout the film. Annie and Helen, after the stressful occurrence of losing then finding Lillian, strike up their own friendship. At the end of the wedding, Rhodes is waiting for Annie by his patrol car. They reconcile, kiss, and drive away together from the wedding. In this analysis, I will be discussing the relationship between Annie and Rhodes. My partner Bree will be discussing the relationship between Annie and Helen. Annie and Rhodes' relationship quickly goes through several stages of coming together as well as coming apart. As explained in Chapter 8 of our textbook, initiating is the beginning of every relationship. This occurs after the engagement party when Annie is pulled over by Rhodes. Although their relationship begins on a disciplinary note with regard to Rhodes pulling her over, both he and Annie plant the seeds for later interaction on the experimenting level of their relationship. This comes to fruition later in the film. After a night out, Rhodes and Annie connect physically and spend the night together at Rhodes' house. This is the intensifying step of coming together, as described in Chapter 8. Here lies the crux. The morning after, Annie wakes up to a beaming Rhodes, who is genuinely thrilled at their connection from the previous night. Annie, on the other hand, is somewhat tentative. This plays out when Rhodes surprises Annie by showing her a collection of baking ingredients that he went out and purchased earlier that same morning. For Rhodes, he sees this as an opportunity for them to deepen their relationship and enter into what Chapter 8 describes as the bonding phase. Annie's reaction is starkly different than Rhodes' hope. According to Luciano Liabate, in his article Styles in Intimate Relationships, the ARC model, or ARC, Liabate describes the progression of the components comprising the ARC model as A, apathy, R, reactivity, and C, conductivity. In the baking scene, or lack thereof of baking, Annie and Rhodes, Annie is scared and unwilling to sacrifice her identity as she knows it. This is what Liabate points out as a retaliation designed to keep a relationship either the same or to revert to a less intense level. In this case, Annie is trying to revert the connection they made from the previous night on that physical level and take it to an even more basic place. She is embodying the reactivity component of the arc. model, which is described by Lebate. Rhodes has paved the way for them to connect and deepen their relationship, however. This would further them in the coming together phase if it was successful. Annie, however, limits this by drawing away from this invitation to other levels of intimacy outside of their sexual connection from the night before. My recommendation on how they could better mitigate this, in regards to that, if Annie had slowed down her reactivity and taken stock of Rhodes's gesture of the baking ingredients, she could have accepted it for what it was and began deepening their relationship. Instead, Annie further hinders herself from connecting with others, which lasts pretty much until the end of the film, when all the reconciliations are made between herself, Lillian, Helen, Rhodes, and all the other individuals that she's come into contact to and come in contact with and burnt bridges with.